12.5 years ago, the bodies of 4 people were found over several days, buried near a remote beach on New York's Long Island.
For over a decade, the Gilgo Beach murders haunted Long Island. 11 sets of human remains discovered along a remote beach highway, most of them young women, most of them sex workers, and no arrests. Families gave up hope. The case went cold. True crime documentaries were made, books were written. Nobody was caught. Until July 13, 2023, when a 6'4" architect named Rex Heuermann was arrested in Manhattan. He had been living 15 miles from the dump site for decades, working a normal job, raising a family, hiding in plain sight. On April 9, 2026, almost 3 years after his arrest, Heuermann pleaded guilty. He admitted to strangling 8 women over 30 years. Some he dismembered, some he bound. All of them he dumped along the coastline. This is how Rex Heuermann got away with murder for over 10 years, and how a pizza box finally brought him down. The discovery. It started with a missing person case, May 2010. 23-year-old Shannon Gilbert disappeared after visiting a client in Oak Beach, Long Island. She was a sex worker from New Jersey working through Craigslist. Her family pushed police to search, and in December 2010, during that search, police found something else. Bodies. Not Shannon's. Other women's. 4 bodies wrapped in burlap dumped along Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach. All within a quarter mile. All young women. All sex workers who advertised on Craigslist. Melissa Barthelemy, 24. Megan Waterman, 22. Amber Lynn Costello, 27. Maureen Brainerd Barnes, 25. The Gilgo Four. Over the next months, police found 7 more sets of remains along the same highway. Some were partial, some had been there for years. It was a dumping ground, used for over a decade. The investigation exploded. National media, FBI involvement, theories everywhere, serial killer, multiple killers, sex trafficking. But despite all the attention, the case went nowhere. Why the case went cold? Rex Heuermann understood how to avoid getting caught. First, he targeted sex workers, women whose disappearances often go uninvestigated. When they vanish, it can take weeks or months before anyone reports them missing. Second, he used burner phones. Disposable cells purchased with cash. He'd contact victims, then throw them away. No phone records tied to his real identity. Third, he was careful about dump sites. Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach is remote, isolated, surrounded by marshland. Bodies can sit undiscovered for years. Fourth, he didn't fit the profile. He wasn't a drifter or loner. He was a married architect with 2 kids. He ran his own firm in Manhattan, worked on projects for Catholic Charities and American Airlines, lived in a normal house in a middle-class neighborhood. Nobody suspected him. He looked like everyone else. Fifth, the investigation was a mess. Suffolk County Police dealt with internal corruption. Police Chief James Burke was later convicted of assaulting a suspect and covering it up. He served almost 4 years in federal prison. Trust issues, communication breakdowns, leadership problems. The case stalled. By 2015, the Gilgo Beach investigation was effectively dead. The breakthrough. In 2022, everything changed. Suffolk County got a new police commissioner, and one of his first moves was forming a task force dedicated entirely to the Gilgo Beach murders. The task force went back to the beginning. They reviewed every piece of evidence, every witness statement, every phone record, and they found something the original investigators had missed: a witness description. One of the victim's roommates had described a client who creeped her out. She called him ogre-like, big, intimidating, and he drove a first-generation Chevrolet Avalanche. She also said this client called one of the victims, incessantly using different phone numbers. The original investigators knew burner phones had been used to contact 4 of the victims before they disappeared, and they had connected those calls to cell towers. But they hadn't narrowed it down far enough. The task force did. They traced the burner phone calls to cell towers in a small area, just a few blocks in Massapequa Park, Long Island. Then they cross-referenced that location with vehicle registrations, looking for first-generation Chevrolet Avalanches. And they found one owner, Rex Heuermann. He lived in Massapequa Park. He owned a Chevrolet Avalanche, and he was 6'4", matching the ogre-like description. The task force started digging, building the case. Once they had a suspect, Investigators worked backward. They pulled Heuermann's cell phone records, and they found something damning. His personal cell phone pinged off the same towers as the burner phones, at the same times. When the burner phones were used to contact victims, Heuermann's phone was in the same location. The burner phones also made calls from near Heuermann's office in Midtown Manhattan and near his home in Massapequa Park. The pattern was clear. Heuermann was using burner phones to contact victims, then throwing them away. Investigators also found that Heuermann had an obsession with the case. His internet search history showed he had been following the Gilgo Beach investigation closely, searching for news articles, reading about the victims, watching documentaries. He even searched for updates on the investigation itself. He also searched for violent torture pornography, content involving bondage, strangulation, and dismemberment, but they still needed DNA. In January 2023, investigators set up surveillance. They followed Heuermann in Manhattan, and they waited. On January 26, 2023, Heuermann left his office near the Empire State Building. He walked down Fifth Avenue, and he threw a pizza box into a trash can. Investigators rushed in, grabbed the box, sent it to the crime lab. DNA from the leftover pizza crust matched a male hair found on burlap used to wrap one of the victims. They had him. The arrest. July 13, 2023. Heuermann left his office and walked down Fifth Avenue. The sun was setting. He had a bag slung over his shoulder, his left hand in his pocket. Several men in dark suits approached him and arrested him right there on the street. The next day, July 14th, Heuermann was charged with 3 murders: Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, Amber Lynn Costello. Prosecutors called him the prime suspect in a 4th murder, Maureen Brainerd Barnes. Heuermann pleaded not guilty, and his lawyer said he was in tears. "I didn't do this," Heuermann told him. But over the next year, prosecutors kept building the case. In January 2024, Heuermann was charged with the murder of Maureen Brainerd Barnes. In June 2024, he was charged with 2 more murders: Jessica Taylor and Sandra Castillo, women whose remains had been found along the same stretch of highway years earlier. The case kept growing. The evidence kept mounting. And on April 9, 2026, exactly 1,000 days after his arrest, Rex Heuermann changed his plea. The confession. In a packed courtroom with victims' families watching, Heuermann stood up. No tears, no emotion, just calm confession. He pleaded guilty to 7 murder charges and admitted to killing an 8th woman, Karen Vergata, in 1996, a murder he was never charged with. He admitted he strangled the women. He admitted he dismembered some. He admitted he bound others. He described the killings calmly, like describing a work project. Prosecutors had won. Families finally had answers. Rex Heuermann will die in prison. Why it took so long? So why did it take over 10 years? Because Rex Heuermann did almost everything right. He targeted vulnerable victims, used burner phones, dumped bodies in remote locations, lived a normal life that gave him cover, operated during a period when the investigation was plagued by corruption. What brought him down was old-fashioned police work, a task force that wouldn't give up, investigators who went back through every piece of evidence, technology that could trace cell tower data precisely, and a pizza box. Rex Heuermann got away with murder for over 10 years. He killed at least 8 women over 30 years. But in the end, he made one mistake. He threw away his lunch.